Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Night Drive Western Suburbs podcast. This is Josh Welge. I'm here with Joe Boenitz. Joel, we are now days, not weeks, away from the first Football Friday. How are we feeling?
Feeling pretty excited. I mean, it's something that we've been looking forward to for a bit, and now it's finally here. I'm sure it's definitely, the most exciting thing to happen today. This podcast, definitely not the announcement that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are getting engaged, but yeah, no, I'm really excited to be back. I'm really excited for it to be football season, and I mean, the weather is reciprocating that as well.
It's funny. I did get that notice when I was out driving. I was out delivering our Friday Night Drive preview magazines, which if people are interested, they can get on our FridayNightDrive.com as well. But I did get that notice about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. So congratulations to them. But you know what? We're not here to talk about them, and we're not here to talk about the NFL. We're here to talk about
high school football.
And boy, I tell you what, I look at a forecast for Friday night and talk about perfect weather for week one. It kind of feels like a late summer, maybe a little bit of early fall chill in the air as we get later in the game. But a lot of excitement. We've been previewing a lot in the weeks leading up, but we're about to find out more about these teams. And Joel, I think every week we're going to be sort of reviewing the weeks before results and looking ahead. Obviously, this week is really a strictly look ahead, and got to start with the game that you're going to be at on Friday night. Glenbard West, Batavia. They played last year in week one for the first time. Really those two teams went on to very different type seasons. Glenbard West missed the playoffs for the first time since 2006. Batavia, of course, went on to the Class 7A state championship game where they lost to Mount Carmel. A lot of excitement about the Bulldogs, a lot of interest in Glenbard West to see if they can get back to where they usually are. What do you think about that game that you're going to be at on Friday night?
Well, I think it's going to be an extremely fun game to watch. And I mean, not only there's going to be a lot of new things, at that game. I mean, from both rosters are going to be extremely new. Batavia has a new scoreboard as well. It's going to be a video board, so there's going to be a lot more of highlights on there as well. So I'm excited for that. But I think the biggest thing that's going to be interesting to watch, it's going to be the matchup between the two junior quarterbacks that are going to be under center for both teams. I mean, obviously Batavia has Michael Vanderloop Guerin, who exploded in the playoffs last year. He is going to be back and is going to be under center for Batavia for the most, or is going to be the expected starter for them next year or for this year. He's ranked the number 4 quarterback in Illinois, or junior quarterback in Illinois, according to Prep Red Zone Illinois. I mean, there's a lot of excitement from that offense, just from the weapons that they have out in wide receiver to their offensive line being ginormous. I mean, there's a lot to break down with Batavia that is very good overall. And then, of course, Glenbard West, they also have AJ Rayford at quarterback. I know he's number 10 on that list for junior quarterbacks in Illinois. That's going to be a really interesting thing to see. So I'm really interested to see how those quarterbacks play, especially in a battle between these two highly touted programs in Illinois this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Michael Vanderloot Guerin, I don't think either of us knew who Michael Vanderloot Guerin was last year at this time. We didn't even really know him until week 8 or week 9. And I was at the game last year when Batavia beat Glenbard West, and they really, really rode Nathan Whitwell quite a bit in that game. They're in a very different place now with Michael Vanderloot Guerin at quarterback with a lot of talent at wide receiver. They have the ability right off the chute to really throw the ball as well as run the ball with that big offensive line. On the other side, Glenbard West, I know Coach Chad Hetlett is really excited about their skill position players. You mentioned AJ Rayford, the quarterback. They have Jamarcus Kelly, the running back from last year. They have Brady Johnson, who's a tight end that's getting a lot of Division I looks. And then they also have an offensive lineman who I believe is a junior now. He's about 6'6", 280 pounds. He's a transfer, interestingly enough, from Mount Carmel on Glenbard West. I'm forgetting the name, but he is definitely a player to watch for Glenbard West. And then on the defensive side, Maximus Hetlet, that last name probably should sound familiar, Hetlet, at linebacker. He's their leading returning tackler. So Glenbard West, again, team that I'm kind of curious to see how they can come out this year. Similar to last year, their schedule is very unforgiving right off the bat. They got Batavia, then they go Joliet Catholic after that. They got Downers Grove North and Lyons Township the first 5 weeks of the season. So, hopefully for them, they can get off to a better start than last year when they started 0-4. But man, that schedule is tough.
It definitely is. I mean, obviously, you mentioned it. Last year was the first time they missed the playoffs since 2006. So I'm sure a bunch of those returners and also, new people as well are going to be very hungry to try and make sure that that doesn't happen for the second consecutive year, because I'm not sure the last time Glenbard West has missed the playoffs 2 years in a row, but I'm sure they wouldn't want to make it 2024 to 2025.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So yeah, that was a matchup last year it really got a lot of interest. Those two teams had not played each other since their respective head coaches had been head coach. A matchup this year that game that I'm going to be at on Friday night, Oswego playing at Naperville Central. Those two teams have not played each other it's been at least a decade since they played each other, but they're not that far down the road from each other. Oswego and Naperville Central. Two teams that, last year, Oswego went 9-0 during the regular season. They went to the second round of the playoffs. Naperville Central reached the semifinals before they lost to York. Both teams, though, graduated quite a bit. I mean, Naperville Central graduated pretty much all their skill position guys, a lot of defense. Oswego graduated. They're a really good linebacking core from last year, as well as both of their lines and their quarterback. They do have a very good running back coming back, Decker Zelensik, that I wrote a feature on recently. They have Teddy Manicus, who's a good wide receiver. He's back as well. So again, one of those games that week one, we find out as much about teams as any week of the season, because we really don't know about some of these younger players. I know Oswego won at the lower level conference titles last year, freshmen and sophomore. So they do have a lot of talent coming up through the ranks. I'm sure the same could be said for Naperville Central, but we just don't know a lot about those two teams. Friday night, we're going to find out a lot about that. So it should be a really fun matchup. Another game Friday night involving a Southwest Prairie Conference team playing a non-conference game. Minooka is going to be hosting St. Charles North. Minooka has a lot of players back from last year. Zane Caves, a quarterback, a really talented quarterback for them. St. Charles North has a lot of players back from last year, but quarterback is not one of those positions. But the North Stars look like they're going to be a really good team to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you mentioned it, obviously, the graduating four-year starter, Ethan Plum, but I mean, it's not like they don't have options at quarterback. They got JT Padron, who was a transfer in from St. Charles East, a rival school there. And then you've also got Michael Atkins, who's kind of, been the backup for Ethan Plum. But I've talked to Rob Pomzak, the head coach at St. Charles North, a couple of times. He's very highly touted on both of those quarterbacks being there. I mean, whoever starts for them, it's not like they're not going to have a lot of options from their skill players. I mean, obviously, you've got Keaton Ranke, a Northwestern commit there. Braden Harms, EJ Mondesir are also returning from that wide receiver core last year. You've got Carson Durante, who was the starter at running back by the end of last year. So there's a lot of options on that offense. But I think also on top of that, the defense is returning a lot as well. You've got, I mentioned Ethan Plum. Let's mention the Plum that's actually on the team still, Matthew Plum, who's committed to play at Central Michigan next year. You've also got Aiden McClure, who had a couple of great games for them last year. Well, not a couple, a lot of great games for that defense last year. There's a lot of moving parts on that St. Charles North team, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they move in this first game this year.
No doubt about that. Another matchup down there, sort of south of us, that I'm really going to be watching on Friday night. Lions is going to be going to Joliet Catholic. Lions coming off of, I think they won 11 games for the first time in school history. I know that they went 9-0 during regular season for the first time since 1943. Wow. And then they went on to reach the quarterfinals. Joliet Catholic, of course, they were the Class 5A runner-up to Nazareth. But, it's funny. It's going to be a game, I think, that we're going to learn a lot about not only Lions and Joliet Catholic, but we're going to maybe learn about sort of like the strengths of some of the top teams in those leagues. I mean, when you're talking about the West Suburban Silver getting together against the Chicago Catholic League school, that's a matchup that I really have my eye on for Friday night.
For sure. And I mean, both of these teams, they did lose some big parts to their offense. Both sides did. I mean, Lions, they lost Travis Stam, who was a big part of their success last year at a wide receiver and also as a defensive back. Joliet Catholic graduated 16 of their starters from their state runner-up team from last year. I know they were very run-heavy as well, but, they only have, they're returning their quarterback from last year in Lucas Simulek, and then they only have one of their starting offensive linemen returning from last year as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they stick with that run-heavy offense or if they're going to try and move to, maybe a little bit more pass-heavy since they have a returning quarterback as well. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen for both of these sides in this game.
Yeah, I did see that. I was seeing that somewhere where people were like, they have Lucas Simulek back. I mean, maybe they'll pass the ball more. And I don't doubt that they probably will pass the ball a little bit more. That being said, their bread and butter is running the football. So I'm sure they're going to run the football quite a bit. And Lions on the other side, yeah, they graduate a lot of starters, but I really am confident. John Butcher really has got that thing rolling with them. What they've been able to do, not only last year, but the last few years. Ton of interest right now in the Lions program. A lot of kids coming out for football. It's obviously a huge school as well. So, yeah, I mean, I read somewhere, I think there's a little bit of doubt that, are they going to be as good as they were last year? Well, we'll see. But I have a feeling that they're going to be pretty good. We'll obviously find out a lot more on Friday night with that matchup. Joel, I think we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
I like Reich.
I like Reich.
Since 2016, it's been my privilege to represent the people of the 63rd District. I want to continue representing you as an independent voice in Springfield.
I like Reich. We like Reich.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Brenton and Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
We're back here on the Friday Night Drive Western Suburbs podcast. Joel, we were talking a lot about the really good games that we're looking forward to on Friday night, but high school football actually starts on Thursday night, a game that I'm going to be at Gately Stadium in Chicago. St. Francis going there to play Kenwood. St. Francis, coincidentally, I saw their last game last year. They lost to Nazareth in the semifinals. It's been a very familiar end of the season for St. Francis. Unfortunately, reaching the semis the last 3 years, not quite getting over the top. They have a new quarterback this year. Brady Palmer, the quarterback from last year, transferred out of state. They actually have 3 quarterbacks now that Coach McMillan was quite high on in the preseason. So interested to see who emerges as a starting quarterback. Whoever it does has one of the better receiving cores around in the state, starting with Zach Washington, who's going to Michigan State.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Zach Washington, has been a highly touted wide receiver for a while now. And, obviously he committed to Michigan State. He's going to be reconnecting with his former quarterback in LSU. I still don't know how to say his last name, Milivojevic. I think.
Neither do I, but his brother is a receiver now, Dario. So.
Yeah, Dario as well. Yeah, that's another guy that's going to be really good for them as well. He's committed to, Southern Illinois, I believe? Or is it Illinois State?
Yeah. It's one of the Illinois schools. Yeah.
That's what I thought too. But still, an extremely good wide receiver as well. So, those two are going to kind of be carrying that wide receiver room in there. But I mean, I've actually seen one of the quarterbacks that, has been touted as potentially a starter for St. Francis in Brock Phillips. He comes in from Geneva, who I got to see quite a bit of last year. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see, how that quarterback connects with those 2 wide receivers. We've seen time and time again how important having a good wide receiver room can be, especially for a new quarterback in a program. So seeing how they connect is going to be really important, and especially against a team like Kenwood, who obviously has a lot of good talent on the team. I mean, they're returning a lot of junior talent from last season. it's going to be really interesting to see how those two teams match up, especially at the start of the season.
Yeah, St. Francis too. I mean, wow, they really their schedule as it has been the last few years, quite difficult. When they got Kenwood, then they're going down to St. Louis for a game. They got Loyola coming up in a couple weeks. Of course, week 9 they got Nazareth again. You got IC Catholic down the road. I mean, it's just kind of on and on and on. I mean, it's similar to a lot of these Catholic League teams that if they can just get through 9 games, get to 5 wins or whatever it'll take to get to the playoffs, then look out. But it will be quite a challenge for them. But man, they do have a lot of talent on that roster, even though we don't quite know. At least I'm not sure. At least I didn't know in July who the quarterback was going to be. But Joel, you mentioned off the top, one of the quarterbacks was at Geneva last year, and Geneva, a team that, man, what a year for them last year, reaching the Class 6A championship game. They graduated Talon Taylor, who's now at Georgia. They graduated the quarterback from last year. Still a lot of talent, and there's a quarterback that they have there now that I'm hearing a lot of good things about.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Peterson's the new guy there. He was playing for the freshman and sophomore team during his freshman and sophomore years, but he has not lost a game of high school football yet in his career. He went 9-0 on the freshman team. He went 9-0 on the sophomore team. And, I talked to him last week. He's expecting to go 9-0 on varsity now. So, I mean, he's very confident. And I know, obviously, he's got a lot of, players that he has come up with. They're a very junior-centric team, on the offensive side this year. They only have 3 returners, one of them, of course, being Bennett Conkey, who was the number 3 wide receiver last year behind, of course, Talon Taylor and Finnegan Wepner, who both finished with over 1,000 yards. So there's a lot of upside to Geneva for sure. And it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together in these first 2 games that they have before they hit conference play next year. Or not next year, in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, they got Larkin week 1, which, chances are it should be a pretty handily win. We'll see what happens. And then they go to Oswego week 2, which I'm kind of looking forward to that game. That should be a very interesting game for Geneva. But yeah, I'm very interested to see their quarterback, to see, what he looks like. I've heard a lot of good things about him already without ever playing a varsity game. But a quarterback that has played a varsity game, played a few years, as a matter of fact, I'm talking about Owen Lansu for Downers Grove North. Downers Grove North, they're going to Chicago as well on Saturday. They're going to play Morgan Park at Gately Stadium. I'm actually going to be venturing into Chicago for that one as well. When I get a chance to see Owen Lansu play, I definitely want to see that. They actually have a lot of talent on that Downers Grove North team that's coming off of a quarterfinal appearance with Owen Lansu as quarterback going to Minnesota. They have Aiden Selecki as offensive lineman going to Purdue. Will Vala, a tight end defensive player that's going to Illinois. So needless to say, Downers Grove North, man, they're a team that I'm really looking forward to seeing how they do, not only in the West Suburban Silver, but in that Class 7A. That's going to be a little bit interesting this year with Mount Carmel moving up to 8A. You probably saw too, Batavia, that could have been down in 6A by enrollment. They petitioned to play up in 7A. So that 7A bracket looks a little, I'm not sure who's going to come out of that. I mean, last year it was kind of like Mount Carmel is definitely the team to beat. I don't know who the team to beat is this year in 7A.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Batavia coming back into 7A, is definitely a big thing for them. But then also you've got to remember, while Mount Carmel is gone, you've still got another 2-time reigning champ coming in Nazareth, who's coming up to 7A. So, there's another team that you can look at and just be like, oh, they've got a good chance of going pretty far in that bracket. So, I mean, it's going to be a toss-up, and it's going to be interesting in these early weeks to see who comes up as a favorite in that 7A bracket later down the line.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Nazareth is going to be in 7A or 6A. I'm going to have to check with Seuss on that one.
I think Seuss had him in 7A, if I remember.
Yeah, 7A. Okay, I've seen different things, so they're definitely not going to be in 5A. Of that I know for sure. But
which St. Francis is like, ooh.
St. Francis is definitely happy about that. But yeah, I mean, Downers Grove North. Really interested to see them playing at Morgan Park. Morgan Park is similar to Kenwood, one of the better public league programs. I'll be there on Saturday with Downers Grove North and Morgan Park. Joel, what are some other games you're kind of looking at for week 1 of your kind of caught your eye?
I think one that's caught my eye that's very similar to, Duquesne Conference, which I've kind of touched on a bit more. Wheaton Warrenville South versus Glenbard South. Last year, the game was 35-10 in favor of Wheaton Warrenville South. That was a big game for Owen York, it was his first time starting, and he went off for over 200 yards. He finished with over 1,200 rushing yards last year. He's one of the better running backs returning this year. It's going to be interesting to see, how he leads the Tigers this year. They have 17 starters returning on that side, are on the team. So, both sides are going to be relatively experienced, and it's going to be, interesting to see if they can continue that momentum and potentially go over 500 this year. They haven't gone over 500 yet with head coach Sean Norris. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they can take that step up this season. And then on the other side, Glenbard South, they're going to be a relatively younger team. They've still got some pretty good players, though. There's a two-way star in Henry Riley that we wrote a feature on earlier this year, in the summer. He looks to be like a potential breakout candidate this year. So I'm going to be really interested to see how both of these teams play in that matchup.
Yeah, Henry Riley was a kid that I wrote about her in the summary. 6'5", tight end, plays some defense as well. He's really kind of, bulked up to where he's not just a pass catcher. He's a blocking tight end as well. I know their coach is really high on him. Interesting enough, their coach Ryan Christie told me in July that they did have an incoming quarterback coming back, but they're turning the keys over to a sophomore this year that he's really high on. So, Glenbard South, definitely. That's a game that I'm kind of got my eye on as well, with two teams that are really close together, just down the road on Butterfield Road that I was driving earlier today to both of those high schools. Another close rivalry game, non-conference, Willowbrook, Glenbard East. Glenbard East, quarterback Michael Nee. He's a South Dakota State basketball recruit, very good basketball player, as well as a football quarterback. Willowbrook, they have OJ Powell getting a lot of interest from MAC schools, things like that. But those two teams very close together geographically. Both have had a lot of success getting to the playoffs, both of them in the last several years. So that should be a really good week one matchup. And then a few other games that kind of caught my eye, maybe not necessarily because of the matchup, but because of the coaching debuts. I'll start with Sandwich, where Jason Van Pelt, Sandwich alma mater, played quarterback there. He's a longtime assistant, previously the offensive coordinator. He was hired as head coach in March after Chris Cassidy stepped down. So he'll be making his head coaching debut. He'll be playing Mantino, a team coming off of a playoff appearance. That should be a good one in Sandwich on Friday night. We mentioned Nazareth, who is the 3-time defending 5A champion. They're going down to Kankakee, a matchup that's been a nice little, week one rivalry the last few years. If those two teams have played some really good games. One of them, I think, was a 2-0 final, which I still couldn't believe when I look back on it. But Kankakee, they have a new head coach, EJ Hazlitt. He was from Kankakee. Then he went to Indiana for a few years. Now he's back in Kankakee. So they'll be playing Nazareth. And the third one I wanted to touch on, Yorkville hosting St. Patrick. St. Patrick, their new head coach, Tom Zibikowski. A lot of people might know the name. He played at Notre Dame. He did a little boxing. I think he might have had a little bit of dabble in the pros, but he's the new head coach at St. Patrick, kind of joining a new trend that we're seeing in Illinois of some of these coaches that maybe did a little NFL, did a little college. Now they're coaching high school football. I know there's Robbie Gold out there. There's Jason McKee at Carmel as well. But St. Patrick is going to be going to Yorkville on Friday night in Tom Zibikowski's coaching debut. Yeah,
it should be a fun one for sure. I mean, obviously, we have seen a lot of NFL coaches or former NFL players coming into those coaching roles. I know, obviously, you did mention Robbie Gold, obviously leading Rolling Meadows to a playoff appearance last year in his first year. Now he's over at St. Viator. So, we've seen success with that trend, and it should be interesting to see if they can start off his coaching debut with a win this year.
Yep. A lot to look forward to as we look ahead to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of week one. A lot to talk about. Joe, I'll be back here. We're taping this on Tuesday. I'll be back here tomorrow with Steve Susie as we look ahead to week 1. Steve will also be doing a podcast with Mason Schweizer from our Kankakee newspaper, talk about football down in that area. Of course, Eddie Carifio, JT Petaldi, and Sam Ramirez will be doing their South and West podcasts later this week. And then, of course, on Friday night, Steve Susie, Matt Rodewald will have their live stream breaking down all the action with live game reports and highlights and things of that nature. And so a lot to look forward to. We will have our previews coming out on Wednesday as well, previewing everything across Northern Illinois. So a lot to look forward to as we look ahead to this week. Joel, before we get out of here, any parting thoughts?
It's football season. Let the games begin.
Absolutely. Again, for Joel Boenitz, this is Josh Welge. I thank everyone for joining us. You all have a good week.